Hello my friend, welcome back to my channel Razib. I hope that you are well. So it's time to start with project number 3 in this section, and this project is going to be the most exciting one because now we take everything that we learned in the first two projects to a whole new level and build a really cool and amazing game. And this is the game that I was talking about, and I call it the cat game. So this project here is really going to be a practice project. So a project where you will reinforce all the skills that you have learned up until this point. Because remember from the last section, reinforcing knowledge is one of the most important things that you can do to learn, right? So in this project, I will do a little bit less explaining than before, of course, because at least about the stuff that we already learned, because we are really just practicing here, okay? Now, if you are in a hurry and just want to learn the basics, please feel free to skip this project. But of course, I will still really advise you to code along with me here. But now, let's see how this game actually works. And in fact, you can try that along with me, because this time, of course, I always update, upload the project in GitHub. So you will see, I will put the demo here. So you can get it from the GitHub and test it with me if you want. But anyway, this is more of a real game now because you actually have two players. So you can play with a friend or something, or just against yourself. So the idea is that we roll a dice. And so now I am playing number 1. Okay, so this one is now the active player. So I roll the dice, and so you see that I rolled the number 5. And so this number gets added to my current score down here. Okay, so this is my current score for the current round. And this here is my total score. Okay? And so let's see how that's going to work. So I can roll the dice again. Now, if I want to, and let's roll again if you want, no problem. As you can see, all the new elements that I got from the number from the rolled dice, it has been added to the current score. Okay? So now 13, and now I can choose to hold this score. So if I click to this button here, hold, so this score, as you can see, of the current round will get added to my total score, which right now is 0. So when I hold, my score will be now 0, and we switch to player number 2, and now I can click roll the dice again. But here I have some exception. Yeah, the exception. And so now it plays in number 2, and I have number 1. Okay? And this is exception here. So when I got a number 1, I jump directly to number the next player. Sorry, it is an exception, yeah, that we want to implement. So let's roll again. Let's hold, and let's come back to number 2. Now, if I roll again, I got a number 1 again. No problem. Hold. Now I have in number 2, so I have rolled dice, as you can see. I have the current score. Okay. And now the thing here is that whenever we roll 1, we lose all our current score. And it's then the next player turn. And so that's why sometimes we need to hold our point. Okay, so we got it the first time, but it is, as you can see, we roll dice, we don't know which number we can get, so we have to got it 2 times, no problem. So here I have the current. I hope that I don't get the number 1, so roll dice again, good. Now, if I don't want to lose this score, because next time if I got 1, I lose this score. So I click to hold, okay, and I jump to the player 1. So let's see when we get the, here directly, as you can see, I have got it, and I have jumped directly to number 2. So let's roll. Now look, I will dice until to get the number 1. Do you see? I have jumped to player 1, I have lose all the score here. Okay, have you understand the concept? So let's just keep rolling the dice until you get the number 1 to see the result. And now I could have hold the point, and then I would have added all this point here to my score, to not lose, of course, my current score. So let's do that. I lose it. Let's do it for the number 2. And here I hold, and here I haven't lose the current score. Now I jump to player 1. I have lose it. Do you see number 1? Good. So next thing, the next rule is when the first player reach 100 points, then he wins the games. Okay, but I will now not demonstrate because it's very long to to check 100. So we have these 2 buttons here, and then we have also, just like in the previous game, we have this new game to reset the game from the beginning. So as you may expect, this dice will disappear, and then all the score are set back to 0. Okay, we start from the beginning. And to understand this game a little bit better for this application, I designed something called a Flowchart. So let's take a look at that. Here it is. So maybe I will increase the size here. So this is what a flowchart looks like. So basically it is a presentation of everything that can happen in the application. So on the left side we have in yellow the possible action that the user can take. And then from there we see what happens in the application. As one of these options is basically chosen. So as one of the action is executed. So whenever the user rolls the dice, so clicks that roll dice button, then we need to generate a random dice roll. Then we display it at dice roll, and then we check whether it is 1. If it is not 1, then add the dice roll to the current score. And of course, display it right. So this is exactly the behavior that we saw when we test out the game earlier, right? Now, if the dice roll is actually 1, then simply switch to the player. And so in this case, the dice roll will not get added to the current score. Next, the other option is that the user wants to hold this score. And then we add the current score to the total score. Once that is done, we must check if the score is above or equal to 100. Because as I said, the player wins whenever the score is at least 100 points, right? And if it is not, then we just switch the player and the game keeps on running. Finally, When the user chooses to reset the game, we simply set all scores to 0 and set the player number 1 back to being the starting player. Good. So this is a very nice way again to visualize what happens in the application, and it is also a very good guide for us to actually implement the application in code. So usually, whenever I build a project like this one, I like to draw a flowchart like this and doesn't need to have all this precision right from the start. So we can just start out with a rough sketch without the complete plan of what we are going to build. But anyway, it is very helpful before we actually start writing code to have a good idea of what we will have to do. And if you want to build your own flowchart that look like this, you can do it on a website called diagrams.net. Okay? And here you create, as you can see, your flowchart. So that's where I designed this flowchart, and it's a very nice online drawing application that is completely free and really easy and fast to use. Now, as always, let's open up our project, okay, in Visual Studio Code. So I have do it as a previous project. So we have, so I just close this one, I don't need it. So we have this time, this application needs this whole space maybe. Let's use, maybe I will use the full screen now. Okay, maybe I will use the full screen to see the code and the plays like this. I think it's more useful like this. Okay. So do it like me if you want. I need to put it in the full screen because I don't need to make this patient to see the code and the Chrome in the same time. We know how to code now. And so, like always, we already have all our files here. So let's take a look at them and in JavaScript. Okay, so here as always, just you have use script, you have CSS, big CSS. So we have all the style that we need for the application, and we will take a look at them as we go through the project. And then finally, of course, we have the HTML page file that contains our HTML code. And they also actually include the 6 image here of this flowchart here for you, so that you can maybe take a look at yourself to make you understand how it works. Also take a minute or two to maybe test the application again and check out this flowchart before we actually start. Alright. Also, I want to show you that I have one image here for each of the dice. So dice 1 look like this one. We have also dice 2, etc., etc. So we have one image for each of the possible 6 number of the dice. So that's going to be important later, but now let's just start to write a little bit of code here. Let's start to code. So let's get ourselves to start new live server that I have always do it. So you can do it just click terminal, new terminal, and live server. Okay. So this is our live version of the cat game. So again, here is it. This one is demo, and here is our application. So again, we are here at this local host, and I am in the port 4000. I have specified the port here. It is related to live server. You can check documentation if you need to change the port. Okay, so maybe you still have something running on this port in, for example, 80,018 as the previous one. So you can change it like this with this attribute port equal and the number of the port that you want. So right now in the starting point, this is what our application looks like. Okay. But of course, in this demo, we don't see the dice in the beginning. And we don't see any score here. Okay, and so the first thing that we are going to do is to basically put this score to 0 and make this dice disappear. Okay? And so that's going to be basically the starting condition here. So let's go back to our code and see our HTML file. And let's just tell you where this initial value comes from. So this is 43 score that you just saw, and this is 24 score. And so let's take a moment to inspect the code, because as you already know, we need the class name. And in this case, also the ID to then identify and select the element. So basically here we have one of this section here for each of the players, and you see that the first one is player 0. And I will explain you why the players are called 0 and 1 instead of 1 and 2, probably in the next video, inshallah. So it will make sense by then. Okay, but now about the score, they are stored in this element and in this one. And so you will see both of them have the score class. Okay, but then each of them has different ID. And so this time we need to select these two elements using their unique ID instead of a class name. So that's the idea of score dash dash 0 and score dash dash 1. So let's do that. So const score 0 equal document dot query selector. Okay, so this is the way that we did it before, and now here we actually need what we did here. We need the hash symbol to select the element with the ID. So what is the ID? It is score dash dash 0. So score 0, so actually I'm interested in 0 here. Okay, and so again, now we use the hash because it is the selector for the ID and not dot that we used to use only for class. Okay, now when we are selecting using an ID, then there is actually another way of selecting an element. And right now, that's exactly what we are doing. So we are interested in IDs, not in class. And so let me show you that other way of selecting element that only works with ID. So let's call this one const score 1 equal, and here document, and instead of calling query selector, here we will call getElementById. Here is it. Here is this method. We will not use query selector here. And now in this method we just pass the name of the ID. So score dash 1. So without the hash here, because now we are not writing selector, we are only passing in the name of the ID that you are looking for. Okay? So this works exactly the same as this, but the getElementById is supposed to be a little bit faster than query selector. But I guess that's only relevant if you are selecting like thousands of elements at once. So usually I like to always use query selector, but I still want to show you that there also exists getElementById. Good. And actually, let's call this to here score here 0 element and score 1 element. Okay, we stand for element because you may then confuse maybe this variable here for simply the score value of player 0, right? And so in this case we are making it really clear that this is a dump element. So we are selecting this here, and now we can use the variable to do something on them. And again, we do that because probably we need to do something with this selected element multiple times through the application. And so we just define them once at the top of our files instead of having to select the same element over and over again. So let's just add a comment here. And comments are also a good way of structuring the code and also of planning how we will build some feature. So let's just put here selecting element. Okay? And so in this project we will try to get a little bit more used to actually write in comment. Good. Anyway, let's now see this initial condition of score 0 element. And then, as you know, we use text content and then we set it to 0. Alright? So, I forgot the comma here. So, score 0 element dot text content equal to 0. And now the same for the score 1 element. Okay, so score 1 element dot text content equal to 0, the same thing. And here we are specifying numbers, not string. But just JavaScript will then automatically convert them to a string to actually display them on the page. Now, if I test, if I am going to save and go into the application, that should already be in effect. And indeed, you see that now the score actually at 0. Great. Now all we have to do is to hide this dice here. Also, let's do that using the technique that we learned in the previous project, which is basically creating a hidden class and then add that hidden class here at the beginning. Okay? So let's go back to our CSS file here, and right now I don't have, I think, class yet hidden. No, let's see. I think I don't have it hidden. Yeah, the class hidden doesn't exist. I have property but has value but not the class. So that just created. So let's just do that, and that's very easy. Yeah. So we create, I do it in the end. So we create a class hidden. Okay. And I just set the display property to none. Okay. So that's exactly the class that we had in the previous project as well. And so now we can just add that class to the dice at the beginning of the game. So that's easy enough, but first we need to select it. So let's come back to the JS file. So let's select it here. So const. So I will call it dice element. Okay, for the dice element. And now let's check what the ID of the dice. So here we see that it's actually just this dice class. So this image with his class of a dice. So what we do, document dot query selector of the dice. Okay. And so here we have to start in condition. Okay, so let's add a comment here. Starting condition. Okay. And now let's simply do dice element dot class list dot add. Okay, but what we did here, so which contains the name of the class, and that's the hidden class. So simple. So let's save. And oops. Indeed. Now the dice has gone. And let's see the HTML here. Inspect. So let's see the element. Where is it? We don't see it. We have gone to the dice. Where are the dice? So let's see the dice. Tag. Do you see? Now we have the hidden class beside the dice class. Good. And then, as we implement the dice functionality, of course, we want the dice to be visible. And then we can simply remove that class again from the dice element. Okay? And actually, that's exactly what we are going to do, inshallah, in the next video. So take care of us. Subscribe to my channel Faisal Azib. Follow me on Instagram, faisal.checo. Like this video, share it with your friends. I will tell you goodbye. Wassalamu alaikum wa barakatuh.